Family is supposed to be there for you during the highs and lows of your life.
We have been following the Stouty family for 3 years now, and tonight we are finally hearing the details of
They are people who you should be able to trust and really let your guard down with. But as we know, that isn't always the case.
inside of a Greene County courtroom as Rachel Stouty read in a statement.
She is haunted.
So what happens when your family members turn against you in secret, quietly plotting your death? All while you are sitting across the hall in your bedroom, scrolling on your phone, thinking everything is just normal within your family. It's hard to imagine, right?
Hard to imagine, right?
Do you find yourself wondering how you wound up here?
This is a family that will truly haunt your nightmares. This is Dark Chapters. Springfield, Missouri is a fairly large town with a population of 170,000 people, but even with it being on the bigger side, it still has all of the charm that the Midwest is known for. It's also a college town, home of Missouri State University. Now, something many people in Springfield do is attend church on Sunday mornings, which really should come as no surprise because Springfield is considered kind of like in the buckle of the Bible Belt because of its Evangelical Christian Association. And on one Easter Sunday, on April 8th, 2012, one member of the Redeemer Lutheran Church was not present in that congregation, and it was 61-year-old Mark Stouty.
You saw Mark Friday before Easter.
Right.
What was he like?
Well, we were doing a recording session. We never got the recording done because he was just so out of whack. And I'm like, Mark, come on, we're trying to do a recording here. It didn't even click to him that we were trying to record. One thing struck me so out of place. His skin color. His skin was actually a yellowish color. Something was wrong with him. That was the last time I seen him.
Now, Mark and his family were regular church members at this location, and his wife, 50-year-old Diane, was the church's organist. Now, there was nothing seemingly too out of the ordinary about the Stouty family. Mark and Diane had a story typical to many married Midwestern couples. Mark was from St. Louis and Diane was from Springfield, and the two of them met in 1984 at a bluegrass music festival. They immediately bonded over their passion for music, and they fell in love. They got married on December 28, 1985, and then they decided to settle down in Diane's hometown of Springfield. Now, when they got married, Diane was already pregnant 3 months along with their first child. And while it was never confirmed, it was rumored that due to the quick arrival of their baby, that's what led to such a fast wedding. But either way, Mark and Diane were excited to get married and create a future together.
Sometimes, everybody kind of reaches a tipping point or a breaking point and gets to where, like I said, that maybe certain decisions are made that normally wouldn't be made for that. I think you're aware of why we're here.
So the couple had their 26-year-old son named Sean the following year on July 2nd, 1986. And things were good for this new family. So 2 years later, they welcomed a baby girl named Sarah. And then 2 years after that, they had their third child, Rachel. The family grew quick, but they were a happy bunch. And then their family was completed 13 years later when Brianna was born.
What was mom and dad's relationship like?
They would fight a little.
Did they fight a little bit? Were they close?
I think so.
You think they were close, but they did have disagreements and stuff?
Once in a while.
And your mom's a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Diane was trained as a nurse, and she worked full-time in the health insurance industry. She was the breadwinner for this big family, which brought on a lot of stress in the marriage. Every now and then, Mark, he would go out and bartend, but his passion was really music. And he was in a band called Messing with Destiny, and he was the singer and the guitarist. But, as most small-town blues bands go, Mark didn't exactly bring in the big bucks with these gigs that his band got. It was more of a hobby, so to speak. So he primarily took care of raising all 4 of the kids. But apparently that didn't really include doing much around the house. And people who knew him actually kind of said that he was a little bit of a slob. He took care of the kids, but really nothing else. Not the dishes, not the laundry, nothing that really goes into keeping a house clean and together. So this left Diane to pick up a lot of the slack. Now, although 3 of their kids were adults at this point, most of them still needed a lot of extra attention. See, 26-year-old Sean was their oldest child, and he was on the autism spectrum and lived at home with his family. 24-year-old Sarah went to college, but she ended up back at home to save money after graduating with a ton of student debt. And 9-year-old Brianna had learning disabilities as well. And then there was 22-year-old Rachel, and Rachel was considered Diane's golden child. She was very close with her mom. And she also helped out in the church's music program, so they really bonded over everything together. Rachel was the only sibling who really loved going to church and who even willingly went on a regular basis. Nobody else was very interested in it. That Easter Sunday, Mark's friends were worried when he wasn't at church. But Diane said that he was fine, he was just at home not feeling very well. But in reality, it wasn't just a matter of him being under the weather. His bandmates were noticing that Mark was not acting normal at all. And on top of that, his skin was yellow and his words were slurred. And then the week leading up to that Easter Sunday, their son Sean posted a slew of bizarre Facebook posts about his dad's ever-changing behavior. This started on April 1st, 2012. When he said, "My dad is suffering from an incurable mental illness and is likely to die." And Sean's posts got increasingly more outlandish as the days went on. So on a post on April 6th, it read, "My father has changed from panic, aggressive, and selfish to depressed and suicidal. He took his car, wallet, and cell phone. He said he would off himself rather than torment us. I don't know if I will see him alive. He no longer cares about himself. He never truly listened to other people. If he is dead, I want to see him to make sure that he is dead." So like I said, this wasn't just cold or being under the weather that Mark was dealing with. There was something way more serious going on and seemingly mentally distressing that Mark was going through. And all these people in Mark's life were very, very worried about him. Something's just not sitting right. So the next day, before everyone knew it, Diane posted to Facebook that Mark had actually passed away on Easter, the night before. She said, "For all my friends on Facebook, this past Sunday evening, Mark, my husband of 27 years, reached his eternal home." And she posted a Bible verse with it. So this shocked everybody because just the day before, Diane was telling people at church, no, he's just at home with a cold. He's a little under the weather. Meanwhile, the bandmates were like, well, he's kind of been weird for the last week. His skin was yellow, his speech was slurred. Clearly something else is going on, right? And now she's announcing to the world, Mark died the night before. So what was really going on here? So when Diane talked to police, she told them that Mark hadn't been feeling well for the past week, and that even though she tried to get him to go and see a doctor, he didn't want to. And to add even more suspicion to the situation, Mark's body was found with a ring of blood around his mouth. So what would have caused that?
Mark had a lot of weird friends.
Obviously, you are not invited here.
Friends, acquaintances. He would binge drink, and he was running around, and he would smoke pot, and they were into drugs and all that. But I've had friends who told me I should kick him out, but I couldn't find myself kicking him out. I was afraid he'd kill himself. Even with all the faults, I
Leave
still loved him.
immediately.
Now, Mark wasn't known to live the healthiest of lifestyles, which included a pretty regular amount of alcohol and not the healthiest diet. So his death wasn't actually investigated much because people just thought, okay, he was unhealthy, he was sick leading up to the days he died, his death must have been natural causes, and that's what it was ruled at. It was ruled to be natural causes. So Mark's body was cremated, and his ashes were spread over Lake Springfield. Diane ended up receiving $20,000 in life insurance from Mark's death, and she decided to move her 4 children into a house a little bit bigger than the home that her and Mark had raised their family in. Now, the new home was in the same town. So there wasn't much of an upheaval for the family since it was a local move, but still seemed a bit strange, right?
Can rise from the ashes.
Things seemed to be going as well as they could for the family in the months after Mark's death. Diane and Rachel were continuing to play a large role in their church's music ministry, and the family wasn't nearly as cramped as they were in their old house. It was also back to school time for the youngest sibling, Brianna, but things quickly and drastically changed for the family on Sunday, September 2nd, 2012, just 5 months after Mark's very mysterious death.
How old was your brother?
26?
His name was
Something like
Sean?
that. Sean,
Was he living at home?
Yeah.
Had he been living at home all the time?
yeah.
So he's never moved out on his own at 26?
No.
What was wrong with him? Did he have some kind of a physical
He had
disabilities?
autism. He had a seizure disorder thing.
Okay. So he couldn't work, I assume, then?
He did do Springfield workshop for a time, but he was having some, like, not behavioral problem, but just some issue with coworkers. And he would just
couldn't
get
get along very
frazzled.
well.
Yeah. Easily overwhelmed.
Was your mom pretty much the caregiver for him then, I assume?
Yeah.
Police officers were called to the Stouty residence because Sean was found not breathing. Diane had gone to church that morning without Sean, and when she got back around 12:30 p.m., she found him lying on the floor with a blanket over his stomach and no pulse. So after the police arrived, she told them that for the last few weeks, Sean was pretty sick. It was almost as if he had the flu or something. He had headaches, nausea, diarrhea, body aches, basically all of your typical flu-like symptoms. But she said that she didn't take him to the hospital because he was staying hydrated the entire time, so she wasn't that worried. She said the night before church, she talked to Sean, and he said that he was sick, so she checked on him throughout the night, but still went to church that morning, thinking he was just gonna get it out of his system. Now, it's interesting to note that when Mark was pretty sick, Diane also still went to church, not seeming that worried. And now, the exact same thing happened with her son. Is that a coincidence? We all say when there's smoke, there's fire, right? Well, here's another coincidence for you. There was also a dried ring of blood around Sean's mouth. Now it's a little too close for comfort. Something ain't smelling right here. 2 people in your family die, the same ring of blood around their mouth, same ill-like symptoms leading up to it. What's really going on?
So when he passed in like September or so, what was the circumstances behind that? Was it a sudden thing, or do you know that much about why he passed, or did you hear the medical reasons behind it?
I remember he was throwing up.
How many days did he throw up?
Less than a week.
Okay, and like flu-like symptoms or something along those lines? Okay. Who was caring for him at that point when he was down sick? Was it mom?
We were taking turns pretty much, because,
Okay. You and mom?
yeah.
So he would think that it's suspicious enough, right? And that an investigation would happen. Well, the medical examiner ruled Sean's death the result of prior medical issues. Diane had told the police that Sean had a history of seizures, and one being most recent, just a few days before he died. So Sean's body was also cremated, just like his father's. And Diane once again took to Facebook, again 2 days after he died, to let her family and friends know about his death. In this post, she said, "To my Facebook friends and family, it's been hard for me to come up with the right words, but here it goes. On Sunday, my oldest child, Sean, died. Although he had been sick lately, we thought that he was getting better. Thank you to those who have called or messaged me. Please continue to pray for us during this time." And while some of her posts afterwards on Facebook were scriptures, which I guess is typical and understandable when somebody is in mourning, a lot of her stuff kind of just came off, quite frankly, bizarre. It was a bizarre thing to post so soon after going through such a devastating loss. For example, just a week after Sean's death, she posted a meme about pie. And then that same day, she made a Happy Monday post about coffee. Now, it seems a little strange to me, at least, to be posting things like that so shortly after walking in to find her son dead months after she found her husband dead. Obviously, life goes on and people do what others would maybe call strange things during grief, but Diane's behavior just seemed, I don't know, a little out there. So after Sean died, Diane was left with just her and her 3 daughters, and Rachel ended up moving into Sean's bedroom. Diane was busy as ever with her job, her church duties, and life in general, and she kind of just seemed to continue to chug along and get back to normal and get the whole family and the new family of just the Stouty women back into this new routine. That was until June 9th, 2013, 9 months after Sean's death, when Diane posted to Facebook once again, this time asking for prayers for her daughter Sarah, because Sarah was now in critical condition in the ICU. Now, Sarah was 24 years old at that time, and she went into the hospital with, what do you know, flu-like symptoms. Sounds familiar, right? But the doctors on her case couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. It turned out that her brain was bleeding and her kidneys were failing. Still, doctors were stumped as to what was really going on with an otherwise healthy young woman, so Sarah spent 10 days in the ICU. She was finally able to walk again, but still was stuck in the hospital while doctors were trying to figure out what was going on with her. She was literally the sickest 24-year-old that the doctors had ever seen, yet there were no indications as to why. Little did anyone know that someone had made an anonymous call to the Springfield Police Department. And on that call, they were saying that something seemed to be off with a family that he knew. He said that 2 family members died from what looked to be the same suspicious and mysterious death. And now another member of that same family is literally fighting for their life with the exact same symptoms. And that tipster that police found out later just so happened to be Diane's pastor, Jeff Sippy, who Diane was pretty close with. From the time when Mark died, Jeff was really suspicious about everything. He didn't think that Mark's death was natural in any way. And then when things started happening with all of the kids, his alarm bells really started going off. Springfield detective Neil McAmis decided to look into the tip from Pastor Jeff, and he went to the hospital that Sarah was staying at. When he got there, the doctor on Sarah's case told him that he thought one strong possibility that Sarah was dealing with was some type of poisoning. The doctor said that Sarah wasn't going to make it and that she was literally on death's doorstep. One of Sarah's nurses also spoke with the detective and told him that Diane was acting really bizarre, especially being that her daughter was dying right before her eyes. Again, kind of eerily similar to her unusual Facebook posts right after Sean's death. It's almost as if she didn't really care, like she was going in for a routine appointment, not seeing how severe this really was. And get this, she also was talking to the staff about a vacation to Florida that she had coming up, and she was even making jokes about Sarah's declining health. I mean, how sick is that?
Is it stout?
Stouty.
Stouty? Okay.
Diane was then called into question by Neil, and he asked about the possibility of Sarah possibly harming herself by maybe ingesting poison of some type. And when he asked Diane what type of cleaning product she had at home, her response was so strange, and even included her laughing at one point.
What kind of cleaners do you think it could have been that she would have?
What do I have? I can't see her taking soap. Yuck. The general, everyday cleaner. I have some of that.
What would that be?
What's the name of it? Lysol?
Okay.
I know I have that, but I don't.
Could you even hurt yourself from soap or Lysol? Do you know? I'm not.
I have no clue.
Okay.
I don't even think about.
Right. I've just never heard of anything like that.
You
so
must
I-
be deaf.
Either.
I told you to leave, Baldy.
I don't know. I guess if you took enough, something would do something,
Mhm.
but I've never.
Okay.
We have a situation
The detective goes on to talk about how they were planning on going through both her husband and Sean's autopsy again so that they could run more tests to see if there were any similarities or anything that was missed. And they asked if there was anything nefarious that could come out of that new report. And Diane played very coy about all of it. She was then asked about the life insurance policy on her family members, and I found her response kind of odd.
What was Mark's life insurance policy like?
Hey,
20,000. That was it.
Okay. How about Sean? What about Sarah?
Sarah only has 15, I believe.
Rachel?
And Rachel has 15.
And Brianna?
Has 15.
Okay. And you were able to get the money from Mark and Sean's, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
It took a while, but
So yeah, but you
finally.
didn't, right. And what did you do with that money?
With Mark's, we were able to move into a better neighborhood.
Right. How about Sean's?
With Sean's, I haven't even. Right now, it's still in savings because I haven't quite figured out what to do yet
Okay.
with some of it.
What were your plans?
Some things are. I'm thinking more of just paying off bills.
Okay. What about Sarah's? If she passed, what was gonna...
I
Now, I don't know. I just thought that it was strange that she knew everybody's life insurance policy right off the top of her head, and how she didn't even seem the least bit distraught about cashing out on them. You'd think that when asked about Sarah's, she would say something like, "Oh my gosh, I certainly haven't thought about that, and I hope I never even have to." But Diane went on to talk about how she didn't really think much of Mark's death due to his lifestyle. The detective then asked her about her marriage, which she painted out to be pretty bad overall.
What was your marriage like?
How can I say this? We were still married, but it was not what you call a good marriage.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any infidelities on either side?
He had.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then, just briefly, that he wasn't the best husband.
Probably not.
Okay.
Not to society, no.
What do you mean by that? Not to society.
Well, he was running around and he would drink and smoke pot and.
So he wasn't a very good guy, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I know, I've had friends who told me I should kick him out, but I couldn't find myself kicking him out.
Why not?
I'm afraid he'd kill himself.
Why is that though? Why would he kill himself?
Oh, he was bipolar too.
And even though things were bad and he wasn't a good husband and you said he wasn't good for society, that you didn't want him to kill himself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, even with all his faults, I still loved him.
Okay.
She said that when Mark was alive, he didn't bring in the financial support that she had hoped for, and instead he would just play music. She also talked about how her son, Sean, needed a lot of extra care due to his autism. And then she discussed how Sarah basically didn't do anything but sleep all day and just hang out with her friends at night. Diane wanted her to get a job, but Sarah didn't prioritize that. Little did Diane know that Neil knew all along that the test results of both Mark and Sean's autopsy had come back as a huge red flag. He had just been trying to get Diane to give him the truth and admit to her role in all of it. So Neil decided to go about a religious approach to all of this so that he could get Diane to confess to what he already knew, knowing how much she values religion. So he was saying how he knows how important it is to her, that he himself is also a man of God. He talked about forgiveness is an important factor with all of this stuff, and kind of just like starts to warm Diane up a bit so that she would tell a little bit more about the story.
Let's talk about it, because I think you probably want to talk about it. You need to talk about it because when people do things, it's always good to ask for forgiveness. Mm-hmm. You know that. And oftentimes the best way to ask for forgiveness is to to talk about it and give an explanation as to why things happen.
As far as Sarah's a difficult child to deal with.
I understand.
And I've been kind of putting pressure on her to, you need to get out and get a job. Your college bills are coming due. I don't want to pay for them. After all, you get tired of doing everything for your kids, and it's like, you need to step up and do it. But as far as did I do something to her? I didn't do anything to her. I mean, I guess I could have taken her to the ER sooner, but I didn't know.
Diane still wasn't wanting to budge. She was sticking to her guns that she had no idea how her daughter, husband, and son all got into the predicament that they did. But again, Neil was not having it. He knew that she was hiding something. So he took the understanding approach, where he acted like a friend to her.
Diane, here's the deal. I'm here to try to help you out with all this, because I know...
Because I need all the help
I understand. I understand. I really do. And I know that this is... I know because you're a good person, I know that this is tearing you up, that this is bothering you. I truly understand that. But I'm here to help you out because I know that you don't want, because of you being a good person, you don't want everybody out here when this all comes out, you don't want them to think of you as a bad, evil type person. Because I know that that's not how you are. But that's why I'm here to try to help you out, to give you the opportunity to stay, because I think I know why. And it's for some of the reasons we've already talked about. I think it's just pushed to the brink. Can't take it anymore. You're doing all this stuff for everybody. You're working all the time. You're paying the bills. You're doing this. You're doing that. You can't get help. No jobs. You got all this other stuff. All these other burdens coming upon you. Where all of us get to a point where we just say, enough is enough. And I understand that. But you gotta help me figure out. You gotta tell me this stuff. You gotta tell me why. That way we can get to that point. That's why we can get it out there that, this isn't just about somebody that's bad and evil. You want people to know that that's not what it is. It just gets to the point now. It's just the breaking point. All of us, every one of us have it.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that, Diane. It's just, we all have that. We get right there, and then, all the burdens that you have to have on you. You know that, I know that. And that's what I'm giving you the chance, Diane. That's why we're here today, is so you can tell me. So we can get it all on the table. It'll be that weight that'll be lifted off your shoulders, because I know people that care, especially good people like yourself, that walk around and carry this kind of stuff, carry these kind of burdens. So many times just talking about it, to get it out there and say, here's the deal, I did this because I had all this going on. And then it'll be a relief to be able to talk about it, to get it off your shoulders, and then to help with the forgiveness and the healing process. But you have to do it. That's why I'm here. You have to sit down, that's what you're doing, and talk about it and get it all out there. You do. I know you're afraid of going to jail, but you shouldn't even be thinking about that right now.
I know. But that's how my mind works.
I understand, but let's put that out of your mind, because you shouldn't even be thinking about that. I understand you're afraid to go to jail. Well, we're not going to even think about that, because that's got nothing to do with it. Now is your chance to tell us why, and to show some remorse and ask for forgiveness, and that way I can go to these other people and say, yeah, She made some mistakes, and that was it. So tell me about it, Diane.
There's a lot of arguments. And to put it really simply, I knew they were drinking antifreeze. And I was so mad at them, I didn't want to take them down. I delayed.
Greetings.
Who out
most
there really is
venerable
willingly
visitor.
drinking
I have been
antifreeze?
expecting
Especially
you.
3 people
I
in all
believe
different
you have
ages in
something
one
for
family.
me.
Now, apparently,
Here you
drinking
are.
antifreeze
In
is
return,
something that
tell me
alcoholics
how I
are
get
sometimes
close to
known to do,
Leon.
but that's typically when they have very limited
Just as
resources.
before,
It's also
a
something people
simple
do
entry
as a
to
means to end their
this
lives. But neither
So
Mark
there
nor
is
his
more
family
than
had
one
limited
way to
resources.
gain
And even if they didn't
access
have a
to
lot
the
of money,
lair
I
of
definitely don't think they were getting to the point of needing to drink
can find
antifreeze.
him
Not to
in
mention that Mark
his
was known to
quarters,
drink regularly,
where
so he was
he is
already
most
getting those
secure,
needs met with actual
guarded
alcohol.
by
And Sean and
Sean,
Sarah weren't
his
alcoholics.
trusted personal
I'm not necessarily
bodyguard.
sure that they even drank at all. So
through
something
the
here
secret
just was
passage
not
in the
adding up.
basement.
And like I said, Neil
Interesting.
already knew
Any
that
other
antifreeze
suggestions?
was the
It is
culprit
man
because
that
when
can
both
make
Mark
the
and Sean's
way
autopsies
great.
were looked into a
Not the
second
way
time,
that can
ethylene
make
glycol
man
was
great.
present in each of them, which
You
is a
can
raw
choose
component of
another path
antifreeze,
to
and it's
be
often
hard
overlooked
by
during
means of
autopsies unless the
insects.
medical examiner knows to look
This
for it. So Neil could see
small
right
flask
through
of
Diane's
powder
bullshit. The
has
math
great
was not math in
potency.
here, and he knew it.
You knew
A leader is always weakest
that they were drinking
when his
antifreeze.
guard is down.
You knew that.
The man you are
They
looking
didn't.
for will be eating at the restaurant.
We both know that. You knew, Diane, that they were drinking antifreeze because you were giving it to them.
I didn't know what else to do. I really didn't.
I understand. Were you just like we talked, were you just at the breaking point?
Yeah. I didn't know what else to do.
Finally, Neil had his admission of guilt that he needed to have Diane arrested. So as he was running down exactly what happened, Diane's body language completely shifted.
Again, this all got started. You're saying Mark is the first one. There's nobody before Mark, not in your past life or not in, okay, Mark's the first one. And it just got started. You said you hated his guts and you did some research on the internet about antifreeze poisoning. You were aware of, the taste and things of that nature, like you said. Then you ordered some antifreeze and then you gave it to him for
We have a
a
situation
few
here.
days before it finally started to kick in and work. And then with Sean, you said you just became such a pest and bothering you, always interfering, things of that nature. And you said it took a couple days, right? A couple before it started to kick in on him. And then with Sarah, you talked about, she wasn't getting a job, and she had some student loans, and you were going to end up having to pay for them. She wasn't getting them, so you guys argued a lot. Was there anything else more, or is that pretty much?
That's pretty much.
And you just had it with her as well. Okay, and then you said it took about 4 days before it started to work on her. Okay. And you didn't use anything, just antifreeze. There's nothing else at all. Okay.
A few hours after Diane was arrested, it was time for the authorities to let her other daughter Rachel know about what her mom had done to her dad, brother, and sister, all while keeping the investigation going. Now, Rachel and her mom were very close, remember, best friends actually. Diane favored Rachel for unknown reasons. One could assume maybe because Rachel had a passion for music just like her mom did, and she must have kind of seen more of herself in Rachel than her other kids. During the questioning with Neil, Diane didn't have anything negative to say about Rachel, unlike her other kids and even her husband, who she loathed. Diane would often showcase Rachel on her Facebook too, far more than her other kids. In fact, her son was actually nowhere to be found on her page at all. She considered Rachel to be musically gifted and someone that she could confide in, and Rachel felt the same way about her mom. So I'm sure you may be thinking how shocked she must have been learning about who her mom really was and what she had done. But before the detective told her about what he knew regarding her mom, he asked Rachel about what life at home had been like since her dad and brother passed, and how her mom viewed taking care of her brother while he was still alive. And Rachel said that her mom took her brother's death extra hard and considered herself pretty much a failure as a mother. And Rachel painted quite a different picture of her brother than what her mom did, being that she referred to her own son as being worse than a pest at one point. But Rachel said that her brother was actually pretty easygoing and basically only needed a few comic books to stay happy, and that overall he wasn't much of a burden to the family. But on the other hand, Rachel seemed to be more bothered by her sister Sarah. She said that her sister basically just goofed off and didn't even try when it came to getting a job. She also kind of poked fun at the fact that Sarah got a degree in French at Missouri State that past fall, and how she was going to have a really tough time finding a French job in Springfield. Rachel also didn't seem very distraught that her sister was just about to die only a couple of days prior. So the detective finally told Rachel about what her mother had done with the antifreeze, and Rachel seemed kind of shocked, but not really all that reactive.
So, brought your mom in today and talked to her, and after talking to her for a while, she finally told us what she'd been doing. She had been giving your father small doses of antifreeze in his drinks over several day period. Same thing with your brother, and same thing with your sister Sarah. I know it's very difficult, and obviously we don't think that you or your sister have any knowledge, obviously, of that. Your mom is obviously she's torn up over the whole thing, and mentally she's beat herself up over it, I'm sure, every day. And like you even said, she's an emotional wreck at home. Her reasonings for doing this to your father basically was that just had enough of him. He was, as she described it, just not carrying his weight, not being a good father, not being a good husband. There was some infidelity stuff going on in there. There was some drug use going on in there, and she finally just got to the point where she couldn't deal with him any longer. And then, unfortunately, after that, same type scenario kind of is the reason she describes for she started giving your brother antifreeze and Coke and soda over a couple of day period. And then unfortunately, your sister, same situation, giving her antifreeze over a 2 or 3 day period, small bits of it at a time in her drinks and Coke. Basically, she says because wouldn't get a job, wasn't doing anything, felt like she was going down the same path as brother and dad, and was just going to be this complete burden to her and the family, and that's basically the reason. That's what she's giving us as her reason for doing this. I know that's a lot to take in right now, Rachel. That's a ton to take in, and I don't by any means think you know anything about it or were involved. Mom tells us that you didn't have any idea at all. I assume that's the case, right? Did you even have any suspicions that Mom was doing anything? I mean, I know in the back of your mind you said you didn't like to think about it, but these things, yours were kind of just all of a sudden deaths. Just take some time and
God.
It's a lot to process. I don't even know how you actually process that, to be honest with you, Rachel.
This guy is coming.
But once the detective stepped out of the room, Rachel broke down, pleading to God about what she had just been told.
Dear God.
Investigators combed through the Stouty home, finding various pieces of evidence, such as antifreeze in the garage. But then they stumbled onto something pretty shocking. Rachel's journal, and a bone-chilling entry from her diary that was dated on June 13th, 2011, around a year before Mark's death. Now, in this entry, it said, "I wish sometimes I could avoid the future and keep looking to the past. It's sad when I realize how my father will pass on in the next 2 months, and how my brother Sean will move on shortly after. And yet it's really helpful. I'm being warned so I have more time to prepare and cope. Also, I get to have Dad's car when he's gone. It'll be tough getting used to the changes, but everything will work out." How disturbing and twisted is that? She was excited to get her dad's car after he was going to be killed and die, and she's glad that she had time to prepare. I mean, what is even happening, and how are you, do you have a crystal ball? How do you predict the future? How do you know both your dad and your brother are about to die in the next year? Like, make it make sense. So the next day, after Rachel was told about her mother, she was called back in to speak with Neil about the investigation. Now, Rachel had no idea that the detective knew about her creepy-ass journal entry. So he wanted to ease into that as much as he could so that he could just kind of like squeeze as much information out of her as possible and not allow her to claim innocence to the diary entry. So he asked about the kind of drinks that her dad and her brother liked, knowing of course that Diane had admitted to spiking her husband's Gatorade and her son's Coke over the course of several days. And for both her dad and her brother, Rachel listed about every other drink on the planet except the drinks that were used. Rachel acted a lot like her mom during the questioning too, acting like she had no idea what had been going on. She said that it was her decision to take Sarah to the hospital because at that point, Sarah was lying on the bathroom floor, not moving or talking. Neil asked if there was any indication prior to her dad dying that he would die, and she said no, only that her mom had talked about how if he kept up with the smoking and the alcohol, he probably wouldn't make it to 80 or 90 years old. But otherwise, she didn't know of him having any sort of terminal health condition whatsoever. So when Neil had gotten Rachel to a point where there was no way for her to deny what he found in the journal, he decided that it was time to present her with it. But what would her excuse be upon being confronted? Well, apparently, it was a dream.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah, I remember this.
What is that?
Will he be able to feel any
Little journal thing.
A journal thing? Whose journal?
Mine.
Your journal? So you wrote this then, is what you're telling me? Okay. You remember writing this then, is what you're saying? Okay. Take a look at this. Is that your same journal that we were just talking about that you were writing?
There was a dream that I had had. That they would die, but
This is your journal?
yeah.
You wrote this? And you remember writing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
At first, Rachel acted as if she had been having reoccurring dreams about her parents dying. She said that she told her mom about them, and that in her dreams their death would be quick and that they would be in heaven very, very fast. But then all of a sudden, she says that she didn't know when her mom bought antifreeze, but that she knew that she was spiking her dad's drinks. So then Neil asked Rachel if the mother-daughter duo came up with a plan together, or if this was all her mom's idea. And Rachel claimed that it was her mom's idea, and that she herself was pretty uncomfortable with all of it.
Rachel, whose idea was this?
Mom brought it up, and we discussed it.
So you and Mom are close. You guys are, just like we talked about earlier, you guys are best, close enough friends, and mother-daughter, that you guys have a tight enough bond that you guys could discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one to bring it up?
Yeah.
What did she say to you?
Basically went through different options. Was trying to find things that wouldn't be traceable, or at least would be hard to trace if you didn't know what you were looking for. I remember her searching online. I remember talking about different drinks that it could mix with, and you couldn't detect taste.
What kind of searches did she do for that?
A lot of Google search, a lot of, I don't know how specifically she does plant related, but she mentioned once how to kill.
A woman in Indiana is facing felony charges, accused of giving a 12-year-old she was babysitting drugs, molesting her, and then forcing her to engage in